What's up, you guys? Thank you for clicking on this video. And breaking freaking news, I was actually just done recording my two videos for the day. It was going to be completely different topics, and I didn't even know this would be happening today. I thought it was going to be later on in the week, like Wednesday or Friday or something. But we have our first images revealed of the Studio Series 86 Lear class Soundwave. And these come in from TFW board member Noon. So these are basically leaked, it sounds like, from what TFW is saying here. And these images, this figure, this looks really solid. This is everything that I was expecting for this new Soundwave release to have. And I was telling you guys this figure was going to be a new mold. I was telling you guys for weeks and even months since we first got this listing. I think it was earlier this year or late last year we got the listing for this figure. And yeah, I was telling you guys, and some people were in the comments saying, you're lying. Why are you saying this? Is obviously just going to be a remold of the Earthrise. You're clickbaiting, blah, blah, blah. The typical stuff some people say. But no, I was right yet again about something, and this figure is a brand new freaking mold, top to bottom, and it looks a lot more accurate to the Sunbow animation model than any other G1 Soundwave figure we've gotten from Hasbro. And those Florodiri designs, it's really shining through here with this release. I'm really digging what I'm seeing here. It comes with the cassettes. It's not exactly the cassettes I was expecting, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. I think what I was expecting was that Laserbeak, Ravage, and then he maybe comes with either Frenzy or Rumble. I was not expecting Buzzsaw, because if I remember correctly, Buzzsaw wasn't in the 86 movie. I could be wrong on that, but if I'm right, that's kind of an odd addition, because, this is the 86 movie line in Studio Series, and Buzzsaw, from what I remember, didn't appear in the movie, which is kind of odd, but that's like the least of the worries. It's really not that big of a deal. The thing here with the cassettes that I do kind of want to talk about that I noticed in these images here is it seems like the designers at Hasbro and Takara, they kind of favored the robot modes here as opposed to the cassette modes this time around, or trying to balance both of the modes, trying to make them look as best as possible. And you look at the old molds that we got a few years ago for Siege and Earthrise, and you compare it to the cassettes we have now. I'm talking about in cassette mode, not, well, even in robot mode, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But the cassette modes on the old ones, at least from what I'm seeing right now, I don't know, the cassette modes look a bit better on the old ones, but they still look good. They still have the same shape. The general detailings are still there. It's just missing a lot of paint, and I think it's a bit more bare bones in terms of it actually looking like cassette compared to those Siege and Earthrise molds we got a few years ago. So I'm not really digging that aspect. I think that's the main downside I see so far about this figure. Maybe once there's more images and more reviews out there for this figure later on down the line, there might be some other issues that we don't know about, just going off of these three images here. But that seems to be the main one that I could see right now, or the only one that I could see. Everything else looks really solid. The silver paint on this figure looks great. The yellow outlinings, you got the red outlining, the head sculpt. It looks really accurate to the animation model. I don't know how else they could have nailed it, and they did. It is great. And you have freaking hand articulation on this guy too now. It looks like you have, I can't tell if it's one clamp altogether for the hands, or if the four fingers are molded together and then the index finger is a separate joint. I can't tell. I think what they did was the four joints are one molded piece where it clamps in and out, and then the index finger might be just molded in place to the hand. If that's the case, if I'm right on that, going by these images, that's kind of lame, I'm not going to lie. Actually, I'm looking at this other image. It looks like what they did was the index finger is just one separate piece that's a solid hinge joint. There's no extra hinge joint on the middle of the finger like what they usually do with some of these leader class figures in the articulated hands. And then the other four fingers are molded together and they're one hinged joint in and out. So I think that's what they did for the hands. Either way, really great. My one little gripe with that is I wish there was an extra hinge joint in the middle of the index finger. It looks like there's not. Could be wrong on that, but that's what I'm seeing from the images here. Maybe the way the hands are sculpted, they were too small for that. I don't know. But, you know, the weapons look great. You got his shoulder-mounted cannon with the individual missiles painted red in there, which look fantastic. You got his handheld gun, which looks nice and big and imposing, actually. It looks a bit bigger than the one we got a few years ago during Earthrise and stuff. So I'm digging that. Overall, the articulation on his robot mode, it looks like he has not just ankle tilts, but he has foot swivel, which is kind of rare for Transformers nowadays, unless if the foot is ball jointed. And I don't think the foot's ball jointed. It looks like it's got that hinged ankle pivot that you see nowadays with most new generations figures. So that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to work. It's probably a mushroom peg swivel up top inside of the leg, and then there's a hinge at the foot for the ankle tilt. That's what it looks like to me, but I could be wrong on that. But either way, that's really crazy. We have a foot swivel on this leader class here. That's kind of rare. And if I had to guess, it kind of looks like he might have ab crunch, like at the base of the waist, possibly. I don't know if that's just the sculpt of the buttons for the cassette player mode, but he might have an ab crunch in there. I don't know, or like a lower waist crunch or something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, because the way he's engineered, he has to fit the cassettes inside of his chest, and that region is like the whole section of his midsection, you know? So there's not going to be enough room in engineering to do an ab crunch, especially if the figure has waist swivel as well, which it looks like he does, which is nice. So I'm kind of ruling out an ab crunch, but obviously we don't know for sure yet. Looks like he's going to have some decent arms and legs in there. The one thing about this, though, is with them doing cartoon accuracy so much and, you know, lessening the sculpted details and lessening the paint, it does kind of have that cheap feel to it that's kind of different from your masterpiece release or a third-party masterpiece release. There's something about it that kind of reminds me of the Earthspark Deluxe Soundwave that came out earlier this year. I think it's maybe the colors they chose and the way the plastic looks on the camera with these images here. I don't know, just something about it looks a little bland and kind of cheap for the price point of $60 and probably $70 after tax and shipping. So that's like another gripe I have with this release right off the bat, looking at these images. But overall, looking at the cassette mode here for him, he's got the typical details that you would want on there. He's got the buttons and all the other divots and rivets on there for the cassette player mode. It looks like it's going to have that same feature in there where you press the button and it's spring-loaded and the chest region flips out for you to put the cassettes in. And the robot modes for the cassettes, you know, Ravage, Laserbeak, and Buzzsaw here, they look way better than those Siege and Earthrise molds. Ravage actually has a tail and he has his missiles this time around, which is great. Laserbeak, he looks a lot more kind of defined, is same with Buzzsaw, even though I thought the molds they did during Siege and Earthrise were pretty good and the best of the cassettes back then. But these ones just look a bit more rigid and just more menacing and better looking, in my opinion. But overall, guys, yeah, this is a pretty solid release despite some of the nitpicks I have with this mold so far. But yeah, guys, let me know down in the comments below. What do y'all think about this new Leader Class Soundwave figure? Do you think it is a big improvement over the releases we've been getting of this character over the last few years, whether it's Legacy or Siege or Earthrise or an exclusive at Walmart that nobody could find in 2020? Or do you guys think this is just some release that you really don't need and you either got the Walmart exclusive or you got the Legacy Leader Class that came out just last year, and do you feel like you don't need this figure? Let me know in the comments, guys. But yeah, thank y'all for watching this video, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye!